Good afternoon, and welcome back to the Rec and Interview Live. I am your host, John Hammontree, and right now I am speaking with Deborah Daniels, and we are about to be joined by Dena Dickerson as well. Deborah, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, John, for having us. We're excited about this opportunity.
And it looks like Dena is actually here, so let's go ahead and add Dena. I think Dena is joining us by phone. Hi, Dena. Well, to start, why don't you tell us what the Offender Alumni Association is? We've been talking this week on the Rec and Interview podcast about the American criminal justice system and about Alabama's prisons in particular. And, you know, being released from prison is not the end of the story. And part of what y'all have committed yourselves to is helping people after they leave prison. So, Deborah, why don't you walk us through what OAA is and how it came to be?
All right. Well, the Offender Alumni Association is formed or was formed from the heart and passion of individuals who have been incarcerated or impacted by crime like myself, who wanted to be able to give back to those who we had left behind in prison, and realizing that much like NA or AA, who better to help me than someone who has actually lived that experience and walked in my shoes. So OAA was formed out of the desire of one offender helping another offender. And John, for so long, we were hindered from doing that because the guidelines and the supervision of release hinged on you could not associate or affiliate with another known offender. It was a violation of your probation or parole or whatever kind of supervision you were on. But going back to what we said, who better to help someone than an individual who has actually lived through that life experience successfully?
Walk us through, some of the hurdles that offenders do face, after they've been released from the prison system. I mean, you mentioned that up until recently, they couldn't even be aided by other former incarcerated individuals. So what are some of the other hurdles? And Dena, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Walk us through, it's release day. You have just been released from prison after serving your time. What does life look like for you?
Well, John, I was released in 1997, so I've been out a little while. But back then, there was very, very little help or support. Everything was centered around punitive measures. If you didn't walk the line straight, you could be sent back for a number of reasons. And a lot of people were being violated for just small reasons, like if I got a dirty urine one time, rather than trying to find a solution to a problem and helping me to deal with that. Now, there are some things that are in place, and including the Offender Alumni Association, which is there to help embrace. And I don't know if you see our logos, but it has a bridge. Our logos is a bridge, and that bridge symbolizes us helping each other cross over to the other side and doing that together, so that an individual knows that he doesn't have to take this journey alone. And you asked the question, what are some of the hurdles? There's still those inherent hurdles of possibly getting a job, of having a stable home plan or life, being able to provide for your family, having a financial means to provide for your families without having to live paycheck to paycheck or dollar to dollar and save some money. But one of the things that we found most important, John, is having that social emotional support that comes from when one offender helps another offender. It's like I've seen Dena take people to get their driver's license, right? And they get down there and they think they got all the documentation that they need and realize, oh, no, you can't get your driver's license today because you need this document and it needs to be a certified document. And you can see the wind come out of the person's body, but Dena and the team is there to say, hey, we're going to get through this. You're not in this alone.
Well, and I think something that, a lot of people may not realize, I guess, is that even after, you've gone through the parole and the probation process, that status can prevent you from being able to qualify for government housing. It can prevent you from being able to, apply for a job. And there's so many institutional hurdles, I guess, that are tough to overcome without an organization like yours. What are some changes that you think would make the process easier for people transitioning out of prison?
Well, John, it's kind of like you said. We got to be a society that really believes in second chances, okay? And if we're a society who believes in second chances, then we've got to be willing to make some changes and give people, although we made some mistakes, I made some bad choices in my life, but still I'm a human being and I do have some potential. If somebody would just come along and give me a lift or encourage me rather than everything I try to do is a hurdle or there's an obstacle that I have to overcome, instead of saying, here, let's get you through this process and let's get you stationed in stable housing. It's like one of our members said that she got a voucher for housing. Mm-hmm. And it hit me like a ton of bricks, John. She said, but the voucher, you can only get housing in what do they call it? Public housing, like in the projects. And why do we have to relocate people to that area? If we say we're doing something to help you, why can't you have a decision in where you want to live? So we've just got to make some hard changes.
Dena, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. And I just want to interject for a moment. Deborah's absolutely right. Having those hard changes, and oftentimes myself included, and anybody has made misjudgment and a misjudgment call based on what they may perceive just from looking at an individual and not truly knowing their story. So what OA prides itself in is that we get to know their story by walking and doing life with that individual and seeing the struggle, the hurt, and all of these things in order to accompany them on that journey, because they're excited that they have a job after being in jail 30 years, and they don't understand that if you're working for a temp agency, it's just an assignment, right, and it's not a job. And so when the job itself is up or the assignment is over, they're disheartened because they feel like they've been fired and they haven't. Yeah. So second chances and hard changes.
Have been talking about it a little bit, but what are some of the misconceptions that people have about, the prison system and life after incarceration? And I also want to remind our audience, this is a live show, so if you have questions for Deborah and Dena, please leave them in the comments and we'll try to answer them as best as we can. So what are some of those misconceptions that people have?
Well, one of the misconceptions that I think society and people have about individuals who are incarcerated is that we're all just bad people. There's something wrong with us, that we kind of deserved what we got, even though the system doesn't have a fair way of making sure that you're sentenced by some fair guidelines, like, for example, the Habitual Offenders Act, where you sentence numerous hundreds and thousands of people to life sentences or long 99-year sentences, but there wasn't a violent crime involved. And some of those people are still in prison today for that. So the misconception, I think, for me that I see a lot, John, is that people think that because you committed a crime, that you're just evil and you just don't deserve any kind of fairness. That you made that decision, and they're right. Some of us did make that decision, but the system still needs to be fair in how it deals with each individual.
Dena, what about you?
With society, and we've found ourselves here of late over the last few years realizing that our everyday person really do have misconceptions of what the whole penal system is about. You're thinking reform, you're thinking restoration, you're thinking getting persons ready to come home, creating safer communities, because incarceration is supposed to be a department of correction, correcting the behavior, sending people out better than what they entered in as. And case in point, we have some persons at a work camp or work release center, and you have 300 individuals there. And what society thinks is that all 300 of those individuals are preparing to come home. They have jobs. They're actually doing the necessary things to get them close, like step downs to step out. And that's not the case. They are using them as other holding facilities just to shift the numbers that are actually in the prisons themselves. They're shifting them into a holding pattern at the work release centers, and those persons actually aren't doing anything but sitting there. They're not working. Case in point, 80 women are working in a 300 women camp.
So these work release centers aren't actually necessarily work release centers. They're just a different form of housing.
Right. Do you think a person needs to be at a work release center 8, 10, 12, 15 years? Okay. And that is the case.
So what are some of the resources that OAA offers, alumni offenders when they are released?
Well, there's something that happens that's unique when an individual connects with the Offender Alumni Association, John, because there are those of us who have already been out for a while, who have navigated and overcome a lot of the hurdles and challenges that these individuals are going to face, that we can help them navigate and walk through. So if you connect, you may already be connected with 5 employers who hire former offenders, because we have jobs and we refer each other for jobs. We assist each other with transportation, because we realized there was a time when someone did that for us. So we're doing those things that we know that everyone coming out of prison has need of. We will walk you to getting your driver's license, not send you. We actually find out, okay, who doesn't have to work today? We need to use the car because so-and-so needs to go. And we can make all of those things happen within our support forums, in our support group, because there's a lot of hands that's involved that are making opportunities available for individuals.
I think our audience and a lot of people these days are kind of awakening themselves to the injustice of this system. How can people get involved and help, either with OAA or with other ways of helping offenders?
Well, John, we're still a small grassroots organization that was born here in Alabama, in Birmingham, through a vision of some former offenders, former Chief Justice Drayton Neighbors. And like any organization, we need funds to continue to do what we do. Like we just helped one individual, one young lady who got out, and now she has her own place, but she needed to get her lights on, but she had an old electric bill hanging over her head for like $300 and something. And we were able to jump in there and not say, oh, let us refer you over here, or you go over here and fill out this form and wait to hear back from them. when people want to move on with their life. So we were able through the funds that we got through the CARES Act, we thank Governor Ivey for that, to immediately help this individual pay that bill and get her lights on, so that her and her two young children could move into their place. So always we need donations. You can go to our website, the Offender Alumni Association.org, or you can Cash App us at $Offender Alumni. You can donate on our Facebook page and visit us. The other thing you can do to help us is like us on Facebook. Follow us.
We do have a comment from a gentleman named Scott Jordan. He says a lot of the quote work in work release is unpaid labor for the state. He says he got out in 2010 and wish y'all had been there, and says bless you. And that's what you were talking about, Dena, is that, you know, some of our misconceptions of work release as a society don't reflect what the reality of the situation.
Yes, welcome home, Scott.
Absolutely
true. And as Deborah was speaking, persons don't understand the mental and the emotional support that's a resource amongst ourselves, whereas they may not be able to get into counseling. But we have another father that came home to older children that he don't quite understand where his role is. Now that mother has been the primary caregiver and breadwinner of the home, but yet I am the man and I am the father, and my kids seem like they're not embracing me. What do I do with that? So there's another father that can say, hey man, be patient, right? I understand. You know, and to see men embracing each other and crying real tears and being able to do that in a place of no judgment.
I know that y'all have started to spread into Georgia and Tennessee, which is very exciting. Are there other organizations like this in the country? You know, is there a model that y'all aspire to? Are there groups that you coordinate with? Or are y'all kind of the pioneers here?
Well, there are groups that we coordinate with, and one of them is the Credible Messenger Justice Center that's in New York, which is pretty similar, some similarities, but I have not seen another organization that is built on actually providing that support, that emotional, social, and mental support, and building that support through each other, with our families, to help us navigate. I have not seen that, and I'm not saying we're the only one, because, you know, there's nothing new under the sun, but I believe we're the first in the South. I can say that.
Well, thank y'all for doing this, and thank you for your time today. And thank you to all of you out there who have been watching. You can learn more about the Offender Alumni Association at their website, offenderalumniassociation.org. You can donate via Cash App if you are so moved at $Offender Alumni. And as Deborah mentioned, you can find more about them on their Facebook. They have a Twitter page. And you can learn more about the justice system in Alabama and the South generally by checking out this week's episode of the Reckon Interview podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Deborah and Dena, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so much, John. We appreciate you.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, John.